Okay, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, September the 18th, I believe. Anyway, I've got a confession to make to you guys before we get through the rest of this video. We'll get to the main topic, but it's a very important confession, and I think it'll make sense to you guys. And so, what the confession is that if you guys can read that, I'm a steakaholic. It's sad but true. I'm addicted to steak. Could have been through brainwashing from the meat and dairy industry. I don't know, but for whatever reason, I find myself hopelessly addicted to steak. In fact, I'm going to show you a video of the steak I had last night, and maybe you'll understand why I'm so addicted to this stuff. Okay, that was about a 2.5 pound bone, tomahawk ribeye that I put a layer of salt on, and then I cooked it in the Otto Wild Grill. The grill gets to 1500 degrees. Got this beautiful, beautiful, perfect crust, and just about medium rare. Just perfect, 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 wonderful steak. My goodness, I'll tell you, it's kind of funny. The vegans tell us that the only reason humans eat meat and milk and stuff like that is because the meat and dairy industries have brainwashed us into believing that we need to eat meat. Now, I wonder, the meat and dairy industry, 100 years maybe, how long they've been around. This is another ludicrous claim that the vegans make. I mean, humans have been eating, and when I say humans, I mean not just Homo sapiens, but all humans, which go back to uh, Homo habilis, and some people would say Australopithecines about 3 million years ago. We've been eating meat that whole time. And there is a reason, I got to tell you, I mean, just the act of cooking a steak over fire, it just connects you back with your primitive self, who you actually are as humans. It's very connecting to our past. And it's just, it's almost such a deeply profound, viscerally satisfying experience. And anyone that does that really realizes that's what humans do. That's what humans are. That's who we are, and no amount of propaganda, no amount of political action, no amount of, sort of attempting to shame and guilt people is going to change that biology. It's just who we are. And God darn, that steak was good. I got to tell you guys. Anyway, that grill is, I think for one more day, they're going to run a sale on that. So, but anyway, that, in all honesty, that is probably the favorite way for me to have a steak is just high heat sear, beautiful crust, medium rare on the inside, a little bit of salt. Tomahawks, man, that is a religious experience. All right, let's talk about the topic at hand today, gallbladders. A lot of people don't have gallbladders or have gallbladder disease, and this is a consequence, again, of our crappy overall diet. We've seen a tremendous increase in the amount of people with cholecystitis or cholelithiasis, which means inflamed gallbladder or gallstones, and people getting them removed, and we're doing it laparoscopically, and it's an in and out, outpatient procedure. I work with several surgeons. That's all they did all day was take people's gallbladders out, and it was like a never-ending supply of people with inflamed hot gallbladders or gallstones, and this is becoming literally an epidemic. When I was in medical school, it used to be the sort of the mnemonic to remember that was 4F. It was fat, female, fertile, and 40. And so we would see women that have had a lot of kids that were overweight that had their gallbladders out. For some reason, the Hispanic population was even more disproportionately represented in that. But clearly, this is another. We're supposed to keep our gallbladders. Gallbladders are for a reason. We're supposed to have our gallbladders. They're not supposed to form stones. They're not supposed to be removed. And this is what we're seeing just chronically. And the incidence has gone up significantly. And so that only makes sense that, it goes up because of the bad environment. And so, again, crappy refined carbohydrates, seed oils, sugars, and so on and so forth, things that are new to the diet are likely to cause these new chronic health problems that we didn't see 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago. Can you imagine having a gallbladder attack 50,000 years ago? I mean, you'd basically be dead. And we were eating a high-fat, high-meat diet back then. Clearly, based on what anthropology shows us. I know there's vegan people that will disagree with that, but they're actually clueless. So the gallbladder. So what does the gallbladder do? The gallbladder stores something called bile. Bile is a substance that basically is an emulsifier. Basically, acts as a detergent to break up basically fat. And so when our body eats a fatty meal, typically, traditionally would have been fatty meat. That's what humans sort of evolved on. The gallbladder, through something called CCK or cholecystokinin, which means something that causes the gallbladder to contract, would cause the gallbladder to squeeze. It would then squeeze the bile. It would go through the bile duct, down to the common bile duct, and into the first part of the small intestine called the duodenum. And then it would mix with the incoming fat that just left the stomach. It would break it up into smaller pieces, and then things like pancreatic lipase and other things can act upon that to further digest the fats, and that's what it does. And so what happens is, for some reason, and maybe it's the low-fat diet, maybe it's effects on refined carbohydrates, sugars, and other things on the actual contractility of the gallbladder, it slows down, it's sluggish, it doesn't squeeze as well. And then so what happens is the material that is in the bile starts to supersaturate because it's sitting there, it's not being excreted. And then it starts to form like a sludge type material, maybe stones, maybe that gets infected or inflamed, and then it has to be removed. And so that commonly happens. And so what happens to people as they go on a carnivore diet or high-fat diet and they're in that situation? They may precipitate gallbladder pain because the high fat is going to cause the gallbladder, which may be irritated already, to want to contract, and that may be painful. And so in those cases, some of those people, they may have to even still have a cholecystectomy or gallbladder removal, but most people don't. Those stones can actually be dissolved. There are medications out there that will dissolve gallstones actually that you can take, particularly cholesterol gallstones. But let's say you've had your gallbladder out and you're like, well, can I do a high fat or a carnivore diet? The short answer is absolutely yes, you can. There are many, many, many people that do this well. One of the interesting things that we found out, that I found out not long ago, and I'll talk about that in a second, but remember, the bile is not made by the gallbladder, it's actually made in the liver, and so there's still a path to get bile from the liver, and it doesn't stop in the gallbladder anymore because there's no gallbladder left, so it goes straight down the common bile duct and then into the duodenum, and therefore you have bile available to interact with the high-fat meal. Now, it may not respond as well to the CCK, this cholecystokinin, because we don't have that gallbladder anymore. So you may not get the right bolus amount. So it may be that you just don't have quite the same physiology that you had before. But clearly, there is bile that's available to help you with the fats. Now, some people initially, particularly if they haven't been on a high-fat diet, they have to transition over, and what they'll see is sometimes they have to either eat a little bit less fat, or in often cases just a little bit smaller portions of meals, whereas many people on a carnivore diet, maybe 1 or 2 big meals a day. A lot of these folks without gallbladders may find that smaller, more frequent meals are helpful, maybe even reducing on the fat a little bit. Now, some people will add in digestive supportive aids, such as things like lipase. Sometimes they'll add, bile supplements like ox bile. The results on that seem to be mixed, but some people do seem to benefit from that. Some people will find that just, in addition to not having a well-functioning gallbladder, they may have difficulties with acid production. So sometimes they'll take an acid supplement like betaine hydrochloride. But in the end, people seem to transition and do quite well without the gallbladder. There are literally thousands of people that do ketogenic and carnivore diets without gallbladders and do just fine. Now, there's this interesting fact is the common bile duct, which is that tube that goes from the liver to the small intestine, actually chronically will kind of expand over time to actually hold a little bit of bile. So it almost becomes like the body's trying to make a new gallbladder out of the common bile duct. And so you have this, what was normally a straight tube now expands out. So you do have a little bit of reserve of bile that sometimes happens there. So at the end of the day, yes, you can still eat a carnivore diet, particularly a higher fat diet without a gallbladder, which is something that a lot of people come up with. Okay, guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. This Steakaholic T Shirt that I have is available in the merchandise section. I put the link in the bio below, or sorry, the description below. Let me know what else you guys want to learn about or talk about. Anyway, like, subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you guys decide. I will try to endeavor to do these pretty frequently, as it seems to be helping a lot of people. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a good day, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.